making the effort to create a bespoke set of content for a client, I think that goes a long way in terms of showing how serious you are about wanting to understand their business and wanting to give them what's important to them. As we were discussing, clients are so busy, and to take an hour out of their day to hear a general session, that's not really moving the needle. It needs to be, one, we're paying attention to your business and industry, and here's what we're seeing. And two, what is it that we're not telling you that you want to know about? And creating a program in advance of that is really a great way to open that dialogue up. Again, a two-way street of us telling you what we think you need to know, but you telling us what's on your mind to the extent that we didn't already guess, and being able to help you see around those corners.
Welcome to On Record PR. I'm the executive producer and guest host, Jennifer Simpson Carr. Today, I'm going on record with Mitch Sterling, the Chief Client Development and Relationship Officer at Blank Rome. He works closely with the firm's leadership and attorneys across practices and geographies to identify and pursue opportunities for revenue generation and exceptional client service. Welcome to the show, Mitch.
Thanks so much, Jennifer.
It's great to have you here today.
Glad to be here.
So we had the opportunity to meet at Marketing Partner Forum, and you led this great session about impactful collaboration between law firms and clients, which I was really excited to attend and excited to talk to you today about. So to set the stage for our listeners, can you tell us your idea for leading that session at Marketing Partner Forum?
Yeah, it's actually really interesting. Marketing Partner Forum has always been, in my mind, one of the best venues to hear what people in the industry are thinking, what the latest and greatest things that are happening are, and especially in, now this post-pandemic world, what are we seeing? And during the pandemic, I actually had written an article about collaboration with a colleague of mine in the legal practice management space, and the intersection of, business development and legal practice management collaboration in a law firm and how it can deliver better results for the firm and better results for clients. So when Sylvia Coulter approached me with a topic that was related to collaboration, it felt easy, it felt natural. It's something that not only did, I suppose I wrote an article about some time ago, but it's also something that I'm living and breathing on a regular basis in terms of how we better ourselves for clients and how we generate revenue at a large law firm.
That's great. And what I really appreciated about your session is, I think listeners may hear Blank Rome, AmLaw 100 firm offices throughout the US, but what I really appreciated and valued about the session that you presented was that, first of all, the strategies and tactics were fantastic, but they were also scalable. So I'd love to ask you to touch on your point about this kind of COVID shift that we had, and then this kind of post time that we're in. Given those massive shifts and the way that law firms had to collaborate with clients over COVID, can you share with our listeners some examples of how you've seen law firms successfully adapt their collaboration methods, and particularly in the context of client engagement strategies?
Sure. I think that can happen along the lines of a few different ways. I think that one, in terms of working with existing clients and bringing them a little bit closer, I think that it's always been essential for law firms to understand their clients' businesses, their clients, as well as the specific industries that those clients are in. In the old days of maybe, let's say, the early 2000s, it was enough to just be an excellent lawyer and to see all of the issues and to within the challenges that you were tasked with and that you were billing for. I've seen in my time of, in this world, which I guess began in around 2004 as a lawyer and in 2007 as a legal marketer, I've seen that change a lot. And, the trusted advisor status is really where things have evolved to. And that means understanding a client's business from the inside out and driving through collaboration, driving better business decisions with legal acumen. And there's a lot of different ways you could break that down and a lot of different ways that you can say that. But the fact that our lawyers are the subject matter experts on legal issues, whether they are regulatory, transactional, or litigation oriented, those are important things happening at the company. And I've seen lawyers continue to bring themselves closer to the client to better understand how their advice and counseling around legal issues is impacting the company and the client's business. A key aspect of that is industry understanding and industry knowledge. And it used to be maybe enough for a lawyer to, okay, this is a False Claims Act issue. This is a non-compete issue. Well, that's still important, but understanding what that issue means in the context of the client's industry. Is it a government contractor, and just does a non-compete or an intellectual property issue mean something different there? And is it a life sciences client where there's a different regulatory environment that's operating in the background? And in order to make any legal decision, or to, I guess, provide advice around any legal issue, you really need to understand what's happening in the background. And I think that I'm now seeing lawyers go not just to state bar association conferences and things like that, but they're going where industry is. And maybe they're among only a few lawyers in the room, but it's important for them to understand the business environment that their clients are operating in. It not only translates into better client service and legal advice, it also drives the opportunity to generate more revenue and to understand, maybe just be 5% ahead of the client on a particular issue and say, I see this thing coming down the pike. It's not necessarily related to what we've talked about in the past, but I was thinking about you, and it's something that you should know. And that, just to bring it back to your question about collaboration, I think that's a really important type of collaboration, is being able to anticipate client needs and having worked closely enough along the way to understand what it is that your client isn't asking for yet.
I completely agree. That's amazing feedback. And it is certainly, I think, what the market expects now. Some of our team members had the opportunity to attend Legal Week a few weeks ago, and ALM reported on the top 5 areas that GCs expect. And 2 of the things that you have mentioned are 2 of those 5, which is they will differentiate themselves to me if they understand my industry and how that impacts my business, and if they can look around the corner for me and let them know that they're thinking ahead for me.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's true. And I think those two concepts really inform one another. Since I've been at Blank Rome, I've been charged with building out our industry initiative, and it's been really, really a great way to bring lawyers from multiple disciplines around an industry, and because they all have a different take. The regulatory lawyers have one set of facts, and the transactional lawyers know what it's like to be in the trenches and know what's market in this industry. And the litigators are, able to find creative solutions for managing risk. And all 3 of them working together under the umbrella of a specific industry has been not only beneficial to the firm, but really beneficial to clients as well, in terms of knowing that we're positioned to think about things in that holistic way.
That's great. And I think that diversity of perspective probably also gives each of those lawyers the confidence that they're bringing the best advice back to their clients.
Absolutely. And it creates a really nice opportunity for what I would say is a fluidity among the lawyers in a 700 lawyer firm. We're now nearly 700 lawyers in 15 offices, and we are moving as one. And I think clients are impressed when they see that when you're bringing somebody onto a call, that not only does that person have industry knowledge of their specific industry, but you've talked about it before. You've had those phone calls. You've fleshed out what's coming. You're reading the industry publications and saying, I think this is how this is going to impact our clients. And the other opportunity it brings is, client in-house legal departments, while they are growing, they have to do a lot of things, and they are, they're as busy as outside counsel for sure. But the difference between outside counsel and in-house counsel is we're seeing these issues play out at multiple clients in that industry. And I think that one of the real value propositions that a law firm can bring is tapping into that and saying, we're not just seeing this at this one client, we're seeing this at 5 or 6 or 10 clients that are preparing for this specific issue, and this is really something that you should think about. And of course, maintaining trust and confidentiality, but leveraging that really broad and deep knowledge set to the advantage of the in-house legal team is really where I think law firm should be going.
That's fantastic. And it's great to hear that you're leading that industry effort and that it has been so successful, particularly at a firm of your size and across so many areas. Mitch, we're going to pause here for just a moment to hear a message from our sponsor. And then when we come back, we'll talk about some trends that you're seeing, and we'll take our own forward look at the market.
This episode is brought to you by Furia Ruble Communications, a public relations and marketing agency serving law firms and businesses internationally. With an expert team of professionals positioned throughout the U.S. and supported by international affiliates, Furia Ruble enhances its clients' brands through integrated communications by providing expert guidance in crisis management and high-profile litigation, protecting brand and reputation, and supporting internal marketing teams with media relations, media and crisis training, and client and talent acquisition and retention. To learn more, visit furiaruble.com.
So, Mitch, now that we're back from the break, what trends have you observed regarding the preference by GCs, in-house counsel, C-suite executives, kind of your target audience for traditional in-person interactions versus this new hybrid virtual world that we're all still navigating?
Trends is the right word because it feels like it changes by the week. We've seen it ebb and flow. I think there was a time, after restrictions were lifted where everybody was really eager to get back together. And I think that the law firm world saw that and maybe programmed too much programming to the point that, there started to be maybe some loss of interest and some, attrition. We had the growth of webinar technology and webinar-driven content, certainly throughout the pandemic. I mean, the volume of webinars that we were doing, not just on pandemic-related issues, but any issues. There was a hunger and a desire for that content, and people were glued to their screens and wanting to hear what's next and what's around the corner. To our previous point, I think we're in this moment in time in a really interesting space where, much like, all things with in-person events or in-person content delivery, it needs to be intentional. And I think we're past the days of a 6-hour CLE program in a hotel ballroom where, you check the box, you sit there and you listen to lawyers and very bright people talk at you. I think that we're seeing a trend towards, or I'm at least seeing a trend towards in-person content delivery, but it's a little bit shorter. It's a lot more focused. And I think we're coming back to the era of delivering that content in a bespoke way at a client, as opposed to, large scale event that is focused on the CLE and nothing more. Now it's to the point of collaboration. We're asking clients, well, what would you like to hear about? Or to the point of business intelligence, we're saying, here's something we think that you should hear about, and building CLE opportunities and in-person engagement opportunities with clients around that. That's not to say that there aren't, there's not a market for in-person events, but I think that with so many people working in hybrid situations, it needs to be an actual draw. And I think that the draw isn't the content itself. I think that there's different ways of delivering that. Like I was saying, you can go to the client and deliver it. You can do a series of webinars where people are very used to sitting in front of their screens, maybe for an hour or two at a time. We'll do it in a series of, an hour a day for 5 days. We've done programming like that. But if you're going to put real pants on and come into the city and park, it's not enough to sit in a room and hear about the changing regulatory landscape. Like I said, the best lawyers are delivering a lot of that information in real time anyhow. But to the extent you can do something fun and something interactive, I think that there's always going to be a desire for that. And that's where I think there's the most interest right now, where you're able to, maybe even not for CLE credit, novel concept, but if you were just to set the table for, with a 30-minute dialogue around hot button issues or just some talking points around it. And then you turn people into give them the opportunity to attend a cocktail reception or whatever the case may be, a lunch right after. You're setting up those conversations around those issues where people can talk to one another, people can talk to the lawyers that were on the panel, and it can be much more interactive as opposed to like a one-way system of content delivery. There's also, I think people want to have fun again. And I think that we've had, really nice events with musicians. We've had, smaller group gatherings around a theme or an event that's taking place in a specific city. And I think people still want to, especially, in this post-pandemic world, they still want to gather. They still want to be engaged and interacting with people in their network or adjacent to their network and making new contacts. And we want to create a forum for that. It just looks a little different than it did in 2019.
And I think you mentioned many critical points, but something that resonates with me is asking your clients for feedback.
Yeah.
Not assuming what they want to be doing, but really asking them and then providing the opportunities that meet their expectations and needs is such a critical part of this and part of the success.
Absolutely. I think that creating those, one, making the effort to create a bespoke set of content for a client, I think that goes a long way in terms of showing how serious you are about wanting to understand their business and wanting to give them what's important to them. As we were discussing, clients are so busy, and to take an hour out of their day to hear a general session, that's not really moving the needle. It needs to be, one, we're paying attention to your business and industry, and here's what we're seeing. And two, what is it that we're not telling you that you want to know about? And creating a program in advance of that is really a great way to open that dialogue up. Again, a two-way street of us telling you what we think you need to know, but you telling us what's on your mind to the extent that we didn't already guess, and being able to help you see around those corners.
So Mitch, let's take a look ahead. What do you anticipate as the future trends in client collaboration? And how do you think firms can position themselves to stay at the forefront of innovation in these client engagement strategies?
I think what's old is new again. And I think that client feedback is always, an important measure in terms of, we'd like to think that we really have a firm understanding of a client's business, and we do. But listening as important as talking in a lot of cases. And I think that client feedback will never not be an important measure of, or at least an important baseline for any exercise in collaboration. One, giving a client an opportunity to, share what's on their mind, whether that's specific about the interaction that the firm and the client have had, or whether that's something that's changing internally at the client. You don't know if you don't ask. And I think that coming back to some of those traditional tools of client listening and client feedback, and that can obviously take many different shapes and be done in many different ways, from using an outside professional services vendor that does nothing but client feedback to sending the leadership of your firm in to both build that relationship and to listen. I think that is not necessarily a trend, but it's something that any conversation around client engagement and client collaboration would start with. I think that another trend in client collaboration is taking a holistic view of it from the law firm perspective. Business development, my team, usually drives these exercises, both internally working with our lawyers and our leadership to understand, things like client feedback and how do we do it and how do we incorporate the feedback that we receive, which is honestly the most important step. It's the determining who the client is that you should speak to, having the interview, and then incorporating the feedback. But internally, I think that there's a lot of movement towards broader collaboration across departments. And I touched on this when I was talking about that article I had written between legal practice management and business development. I think that continues to be true, and I think it's only continuing to grow. I work very closely with other chiefs at my firm. I work closely with our Chief Innovation and Value Officer, and I work closely with our Chief Technology Officer, because the data that we're using to make decisions about collaboration with clients is so essential. And I have regular interaction with our terrific Chief Technology Officer to build dashboards, to understand when I'm talking about industries, where's the revenue coming from? How has it grown? What impact are we having? And how is that going to move the needle on future efforts in collaboration around industry and working with clients in that space? Similarly, working with our Chief Innovation and Value Officer, we're able to look at, what's driving this? Where are the hours coming from, in the work that we're doing in different industries or different clients? Where are there opportunities? I don't want to turn this into a conversation about cross-selling, because that's really not what this is, but it's almost a white space analysis of, this is interesting because this client in, let's say, the life sciences industry is using the firm in areas A, B, and C, but this client is only using us in C, and another client is using us in LMNOP. And, the fact is that by looking at the data and looking at how the work is being done, we can create better solutions around delivering value to clients in different ways. We can look at bundling services, whether that's bundling them along industry lines, whether that's a flow of a service offering where it starts with an audit of some sort and it progresses into a risk analysis. There's just so much that we can do. And just like we're seeing different aspects of business issues and industry issues play out with multiple clients, the departments within a law firm are seeing different facets of the relationships with a client and the relationships across the firm. So that's something that I think is, at least in my world, and I would think at other firms, is going to continue to grow as each of our departments has gotten so much more sophisticated. And that's something I always like to talk about. And I think this is to your question about what's next. I think to see where we're going, we have to kind of look at where we were. And when I started doing this in 2007, it was, okay, can you fix my bio? Okay, can we pull a brochure on this? And it was more than that. I'm speaking a little bit of hyperbole, but it has evolved so much beyond that in terms of the things that we just spoke about, whether that's industry teams, whether that's looking at client value delivery. And that's, if it's true in the business development and marketing world of moving from a brochure to very sophisticated client-centric industry teams and client teams, it's happening in technology, it's happening in innovation, it's happening in HR. All of these things are very different than what they used to be. And I think as business professionals in these various departments, we see that. I think the lawyers see that. And I think that the clients are understanding, that their relationship to the firm is evolving too, as the firm has new capabilities across it.
It sounds like we started in the industry around the same time. And something that I'm super proud of the industry is the way the amazing professionals in our community have helped transform not only how we're viewed as strategic partners to our lawyers, but also the resources that we have been able to secure to support more strategic and innovative work. And so to your 2 points of client feedback and data, both of those things are really critical in helping teams like yours make really informed decisions and vie for where those resources are allocated, right? Based on what you're hearing from the clients and what the data is showing. So those are 2 trends that our listeners absolutely need to be looking out for if they're not already doing those, exercising those activities at their firm.
Definitely.
So, Mitch, I've really enjoyed this conversation, and I want to thank you so much for joining me today. I'm glad we had the chance to meet in Florida. I also want to thank our listeners for tuning in. Please visit our website, onrecordpr.com, subscribe to the show, and share it with your friends and colleagues. As always, we welcome guest and topic ideas at podcast@onrecordpr.com, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Mitch.
On Record PR is produced by Jennifer Simpson Carr and Matt Henderson, with support from the team at Furia Ruble Communications. This episode is edited by Željko Tomic of Compost Media Flow.